Hello and welcome to On Production, presented by Wrapbook. Today, I'm excited to have two dynamic executive producers with us, TJ Tamayo and Juan Sebastian Byron. TJ is an LA native with a passion for storytelling, rooted in her Filipino heritage and a love for iconic films. She brings her creative vision to life in various media forms. And Juan Sebastian, a Colombian American producer and USC film alum, combines his love for digital technology with innovative storytelling, creating really awesome, impactful content across platforms. Together, they are the driving force at 5 to 60, known for cutting-edge approach to all kinds of media production. TJ, Juan Sebastian, it's great to have you both here to share your insights and experience in our kind of ever-evolving world of film and digital media. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cameron.
Thanks, Cameron.
So TJ, how did your upbringing and early love for film shape your career path in media production?
I've always had a passion for storytelling and film, even as far back as I could remember, honestly. I grew up in LA, so I definitely was, surrounded by it. But I found myself just kind of like really investing in the stories and the characters. I remember like one of my favorite movies of all time as a kid was like The Mighty Ducks. And I used to imagine myself being one of the ducks and I went to Russia with them and, played in the USA team. And I just remember being, just kind of having it be a portal out of like sort of my reality. And I think that it's still how I feel about film to this day. It's never kind of lost that mystery for me, even though obviously I see all the behind the scenes now. And also just, I feel like it's a great window to just, for me, it really allowed me to bond with my dad too, because he really loved action movies. So we used to watch like Jean-Claude Van Damme and like Sylvester Stallone and like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I feel like that's kind of the power of storytelling. And I just kind of knew always that I would be part of it in some way. I think I wanted to be an actress when I was younger, but I realized pretty quickly that I don't really like being in the spotlight and I prefer to be more behind the scenes. So I'm, kind of right where I need to be in helping, bring these stories to life. So that's kind of where my love for it goes.
That's fantastic. Sebastian, for you, what kind of drew you to focus on digital technology and storytelling, and how has that influenced your work at 5 to 60?
Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I think it was in middle school, and my best friend came up to me one day and he was like, yeah, I want to make a short film. There was a local film festival. They had like a student screening of projects. And it's like, yeah, I want to make a short film. I want you to help me. I want you to be my cinematographer. And, for me, it was like Google, like, what is the cinematographer? Like, how do you make movies? And I was not somebody who watched a lot of movies, before that, but just kind of really diving into like how it all worked. Like, it just felt like a magic trick to me. Like the idea that like, oh, they only use one camera, but it looks like it's a bunch of different cameras. Like, oh, they do this trickery. This is how you do it. I just became obsessed, I just wanted to learn everything there was to learn about, how you made movies, how, these projects came together. We went out there, we shot stuff and just learned from each project that we did. And at the time, I fit into that role of like the cinematographer because it really was like, my friend's vision and his ideas. And I just loved coming along and trying to find solutions and figuring out how we could make them. There was a little bit of producing too, because back then, we were just doing everything. So I just got very used to that dynamic of being somebody's like support and like partner in making things. As I went to film school, it was that same dynamic. I fit into that role. I started taking a lot of the cinematography classes at the same time. Making projects for us was like going out there, getting locations, negotiating gear, deals, etc. So the producing part, and especially when you start PAing, you're doing a lot of producing oriented work, kind of going up through that side of the ladder. So it's always been a bit of like that hybrid world for me. And as I started getting better at making stuff, my question was like, what's next? Like, I want to learn more. That's really what took me to explore new techniques and new, digital stuff and a lot of innovative storytelling was just wanting new challenges, wanting new things to Google and try to figure out how they worked. And it's just been a bit of like an evolution of that. Like, I feel like to this day, like I just love a project where you come in and you're just trying to figure out how to find solutions, how to solve these creative and practical problems. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I went through that process where I started to realize I kind of had to pick a lane because I loved being a cinematographer. I loved all of that process, but also just loved being involved just more involved and having more control over the project in terms of like solving problems outside of just like the image. And I think that's one of the things that kind of gravitated me to this current role that I have now.
That's fantastic. I'm definitely going to ask you a few questions about your experience as a cinematographer. But before I do, I mean, TJ, you have this really rich background as well in producing really complex productions. Can you share an experience from working on projects like, Super Bowl ads and music videos that's been particularly impactful for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have been in production for a decade now, and I started as a PA, so I worked my way up through the ladder, and I think that has really helped me become a really strong producer. I'm an executive producer because I really do understand like everything from ordering lunches to the complexities of like organizing, incredibly crazy schedules and things like that. A specific example a little bit earlier in my career was I actually worked on that Maroon 5 music video, Sugar. I don't know if you guys remember that. It's quite some time ago. But I just remember that being such an eye opener for me in the sense that because it was such a different project. We had like real weddings, real people that we were surprising. I think it was a 5-day shoot. We had like a lot of, B-roll type stuff. I mean, it was a massive job for this kind of music video. And I just remember having to deal with so many things that changed on the dime. I'm just trying to really be organized and collaborate with so many different people and weddings and making sure we came at the time that they asked us because we didn't want to, give ourselves away because we were surprising the guests. So I just remember that being particularly challenging and almost like wanting to quit production after that. And then just after that, I remember just being like, if I can get through this, I can get through anything. And it bled into like just every production I grew. I remember I did a Super Bowl commercial. I was with DoorDash and it was actually Sesame Street. And the director was Michelle Gondry, who I'm a huge fan of. And that was also a massive job, but it was also just really fun for me because I loved Sesame Street as a kid growing up too. So it kind of reminded me of like why I was in this business and why I liked it. I think every job, it's just one of those jobs that you kind of just learn through experience. And you have no idea how well you can work under pressure until you're put in these kinds of situations. And everything feels very life or death, which is kind of crazy because it's not, but it feels that way. And I just learned to be so much more resilient in that sense. So yeah, I think just every production just makes you stronger, really.
It's so interesting in production, the number of challenges that each individual is figuring out solutions for, whether they are the ones capturing the images or the ones producing the entire set. And with that, Sebastian, like you had mentioned this a moment ago, that you've really gone deep and in some cases have contributed as a cinematographer. How do those experiences kind of influence your role today as an EP?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I realized a lot of my experience when I was working as a cinematographer was working very closely with producers and working very closely with directors, because I think at the end of the day, we're all problem solvers, whether it's a production problem, a creative problem, it's really the same skill set. We're all sort of in our individual disciplines, but there's such a skill that we all share in coming up with solutions, knowing how to pitch the solutions, making sure you understand your role and your contribution. And it's a really, I think what was interesting for me was realizing, like, as a DP, I was working with directors and producers to make commercials. As an EP, I'm working with directors and producers to make commercials. So the skill set is so similar. And, I think it's a rare thing. You don't really see a lot of DPs that step into this role. But having worked so closely with directors too, just having an understanding of the challenges, their needs, the work, like truly, like the hard work and real commitment that it takes to make something really good. And at the same time, also understanding from a producing standpoint, like the challenges, how difficult sometimes it is to pull off very ambitious, creative, etc. It's a lot of fun, and it felt like I was just a continuation of what I'd been doing forever. It's interesting kind of seeing that dynamic, but ultimately we're all sort of trying to make the best version of the vision, of the creative, of the project. And you'll find that from the grips to the art department people, everyone is very much a solving problems. And it is our, like, ultimately, like, the best skill set that we all have and we all share.
That's fantastic. And so I'm curious how this applies for both of you. Like, what does your day-to-day work as executive producers at 5 to 60 involve? How do you approach new projects?
We work primarily in commercials. The main bulk of our work is in the commercial space. And I think TJ and I both have that traditional commercial background of having come up in that model and the production world there. So I think as EPs, we are kind of at the front lines of commercials when they come in. We will generally, although we do a lot of our work with brand partners, a lot of our work is from agencies that are going out and sending out requests for reels. And we work with a network of directors that we, propose for projects. The reels come in, and at that point, once an agency invites us to pitch on a project, one of us is sort of assigned to the project, or one of us steps in to lead the project at that stage. If you want to kind of go from there, TJ.
Yeah, and then we're very collaborative at 5 to 60, and so we kind of, tag team a lot of things if depending on like kind of our bandwidth. But yeah, after shortlisting, we usually start bidding the project, and given how much experience we both have like on set, it's pretty easy to be able to do that because we really do have a good understanding of how much things cost and what's needed. Like if you need extra permits for certain things, or like location or police that maybe some people wouldn't think about. And obviously you really just dive deep into the creative and just make sure that you're I usually write a list. I write a list of how many talent is there, how many locations is there, and then just kind of go from there. And then we also just help the directors with their treatments as well. So once we kind of have a call with the agency, we have a creative call with them usually, and then we talk through kind of what their needs are, concerns, like what they're really hoping to show the client and what their creative approach is. Then we can, start putting our treatment together to kind of show what our vision is. And then we, work really closely with the director on that. And then, we submit it and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's a competition. So generally the agencies will bid 3 production companies and 3 directors. And there's a process of, each team putting together their vision, their proposal, and ultimately they make a decision. So, this is kind of where we wear a little bit of our sales hat, a little bit of like a director coach of, helping them out and trying to guide them, because we go through it a lot. I think a director, only pitches on a certain number of commercials a year. We do it all the time. So I feel like we get to bring a little bit of our experience into it. And yeah, it's fun. And then once, if we are lucky to win the job, because it doesn't always happen, but if we get the job, we get to make it. And our job as an EP is to hand this off to our producers, and then supervise it along the way. We also act as a lot like the director's reps. Like, we are a director representative. We're there to make sure that they're being heard, that their vision is being, considered, that they're being taken care of. And ultimately, if they have any concerns, we're the people that are really invested in making sure that they have a great experience. I mean, we're only as good as the directors that we get to pitch. And so it's a really important part of the process for us to make sure that they are directors who want to come back time after time, work with us, as well as the agencies, as well as our brand partners, et cetera.
That's really great insight. I mean, Sebastian, you just said something there key, which is about the experience that you all provide. Can you maybe both of you walk me through a project at 5 to 60 that kind of exemplifies your approach to media production? I mean, I know that you have, folks in Brooklyn, LA, New Orleans, Colombia. Like, walk us through kind of what makes your guys' approach to this, both with the management of the directing talent, the agencies, and the kind of the production of your projects, particularly to your approach.
I was actually going to talk about one job that we did, which was Starbucks, which ended up being a challenge for us because it was also not a real person kind of thing where it was a different approach to how we traditionally do commercials, in the sense that we had to find people that were going to nominate people that were going to be surprised. And basically the whole idea is that Starbucks gives you a break because people get so busy in their lives, and they nominated people that usually put other people before themselves. They don't have a lot of time for themselves. So that required a lot of casting. It took 3 to 4 weeks just to cast that, just making sure we really found the right people that were deserving of it. And then, approaching it. And there was a lot of prep in this job rather than normal, because we were surprising people. We shot this at the American History Museum in New York, and we were in that big whale room, and that room is massive. And so we had to really rehearse the logistics of how we were going to bring them in, and what were we telling them to have them come. We made a video beforehand that was played on a screen as they came in. So we had to so it was just a lot of prep on that one. And then part of it too, which was actually cool, was that we had a bunch of background. That the whole idea was that these background were going to be normal people at the museum. And then once the people that were going to be surprised came in, they dispersed and disappeared. So it was a bunch of people and then just nothing. And so we had to just really, collaborate with that. We had to have enough cameras. It was almost treated like a live event, and we were watching it on the fly. So that was a really cool project that we had to kind of figure out how to do, because it was kind of almost like a live event, how we treated it. I also wanted to talk to you guys. I think you could talk about iFit, because that's actually a really good example, I think, of how this was before I was at the company, but Sebas was heavily involved in that, and he could talk a bit about how, we really worked on that to make it, dynamic for the client.
Yeah, I think, what's unique about our company is that from the beginning, the philosophy has always been to be very flexible, to be very open-minded, and to try to operate outside of the model that a lot of production companies were using. So this was very early on, when it was expected for a production company to have a roster, to have directors. And the idea was we're going to go out and find the best people. We're going to really build a skill set in putting projects together by really, rather than trying to kind of fit a square peg into a round hole, we want to find that round piece that's going to be perfect for it. So I think in that example that TJ brought up, it was finding that director who was really able to understand this, rather than saying well, we have a director here that could work. It was who's really good at this, and how can we build a team around them? And I think that's the flexibility of being a team that has, an international presence across the country, being able to be tapped into a lot of networks. As TJ mentioned, that iFit project, we worked for iFit. They're just a fitness technology company. Early on, during the pandemic, they just needed to produce a lot of content, a lot of really unique content where they were going out all over the world and doing these guided fitness experiences. Very unique challenge. I mean, we shot in like 30 countries, like had multiple teams going at any given time. You had to go out there and run with these running coaches or bike people or, whatever. It was just this very extreme production experience, and something that I think if you approach like a more traditional production company, like they just are not set up or able to handle something as unique as that. And for us, it was just an extension of what we had gotten really good at, which is find the right people, empower them, and, deliver that. I think as EPs, something that's important to us is that we're the representatives also of the production company. So we're the ones that are really there for all the touch points with our partners. They're talking to us, they're getting to trust us, we're building that relationship. And that's something that I think that we do really well, and that I think is such an important part of the process is to, when somebody's like, hey, we've got a project, let's go to 5 to 60 for it, like they know what they're going to get. Everybody is hiring freelancers and going out and making things. But I think as an EP, like that continuity and that production company presence is so important. So I'd say that's something that's a huge priority for us. We do our own bids. We're with the projects the entire time. When problems come up, we're stepping in, we're having those conversations. And yeah, ultimately, I think that's one of the things that makes us really special.
I'd really like to drill into this. So I'd love to know what your approach to collaboration on set looks like. How do you balance the creative visions with practical production needs? What are the actual processes or workflows that you have in place that allows you to do this kind of in a productive way, especially in that example of filming across 30 countries? I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's a lot of trust, honestly. Like it's building these relationships and understanding what is appropriate to ask for, what's too much. We really are only as good as the people that are, coming in and helping us on our projects. And I think that for us, our collaborative process, I think, really revolves around creating that environment where people trust us, where people understand that they can tell us when they can't do something, when they can do something, understanding the limitations. And same with our agency and brand partners is also trying to understand their needs and, being very clear and communicating. I don't think that there's we don't necessarily have like specific protocols for how we handle things, but I think we do have a culture of listening and really creating an environment where people are going to speak up and where people are really going to tell us like, we can do this, we can't do this. And it's so important because I think ultimately we're only going to be able to do things to the abilities of everybody that we have working with us.
Yeah, and then just add to that, I do think it does just come with time and experience and understanding, like when it's right to push back and when you are okay to just be like, okay, let's really figure this out, knowing when that director's vision is something kind of worth fighting for, when they're being, a little too much. So we just finding that balance, I think it is probably the biggest challenge, but with time, you just kind of learn that. And it's really been helpful to go through all the projects and really have a good understanding of what is doable and within the budget and the parameters that they give you.
Looking ahead, what trends or changes do you both foresee in film and commercial production?
It's been an interesting time since I think both of us have come into this world. I think broadly you'll hear a lot of people talking about shrinking budgets and rising expectations. It feels like more and more we are looking at projects that have so many deliverables, so many different pieces. TJ and I have both done shoots where we were doing, the main broadcast spots, all the socials, squares, rectangles, triangles, like whatever. You have all of these different UGC, this, that, all the posts that goes into it. And yeah, it's more than ever, I think we're getting into this place of really needing to come up with solutions and have a lot more hands-on involvement, I think, from EPs. I think that's given us an edge recently, is that we have such a strong production background. We have a strong technical background. We know how to do this. And there was a time when I think EPs had a lot more flexibility early on in the process of being able to bid a little bit looser and kind of be like, yeah, I think we can do it this way, but we'll figure it out later. I think we don't have that luxury anymore. Like, we need to be making decisions very early in the bidding process, figuring out schedules, figuring out solutions. So I would say that, yeah, my feeling is that the industry is getting more challenging. It's getting more difficult. It's requiring people that have broader skill sets, more experience, more understanding of technical things that I think were not necessary in the past. And really that sort of problem solving at every stage of figuring out how to deliver. Because yeah, I don't really see a world where we're going to go back. If anything, I think this is the new normal of, making things at a very fast pace with a lot of moving pieces and with just a really strong need for that sort of specificity too, where you need the right storytellers, where this project has to have like a very specific voice. And I think the era of directors who can do everything is passing. Like, our agency producer partners, they'll tell us we're seeing 100, 150 directors for this project. And they're just looking for the director that's perfect. And so, yeah, I think we're getting into this world of like specialization, and it's really interesting. I mean, it's really fun. We all get a different challenge generationally, and I think right now it's a really fun time to be in it, but it's also a very challenging time as well.
Also, AI is something that, I think everyone is talking about. I know it was a big topic at AICP last year. So it's definitely something, we're just keeping, our tabs on, just looking for directors too who kind of understand the AI space and, that kind of stuff. So we're just kind of looking ahead to that and technology and how that's shifting, and just keeping on top of these new evolutions of how things are getting done.
Yeah, it's a lot of adaptability, and it's actually caused us to constantly be reassessing our business model as well. We've realized that we've built a lot of really amazing relationships with directors, and that's a new process for us, a new adaptation and evolution, is that we are now starting to develop a roster company to work with the directors that have developed that trust with us and be able to bring them out and develop projects with them as well.
That aligns with what I was going to ask, which was, TJ, you mentioned AI, complex deliverables, a world changing at a rapid pace across all industries, not just in commercial production. I was curious, like, how does 5 to 60 plan to evolve with these trends, and what future projects are you both excited about? I mean, Sebastian, you describe, some of the things you're doing about, really working with your agency partners and with directors to kind of think through the implications of the landscape changing. But yeah, I'm really curious if there are any projects you can kind of describe, maybe not the clients, but the craft behind the projects that have you both excited about the future.
Yeah, it's, as TJ mentioned, the AI thing is amazing, and every day we're finding talent that's really at the cutting edge of it, and we're being asked all the time for to develop those relationships and to sort of figure out like, okay, when these needs come up, who are the right people to bring on board. Yeah, for us, it's an interesting process because we're just constantly thinking about like, well, what if we did this? What if we do that? It's sort of constantly testing and trying out ideas and figuring things out. I mean, right now, yeah, this early in the year, it's amazing. It's like every year for us, it's just a mystery. It's just, we just dive in and we're like, we have no idea what's going to happen this year. And it's going to be a roller coaster ride. And I think we're in the very early stages of it going up. We were very enthusiastic that we're going to see a big turnaround in the market. And we're already, we've got a project that's currently in pre-production and moving into doing more and more shoots. But what's also fun for us, as always, is finding solutions to our partners' needs. And we're also seeing tighter budgets that don't necessarily make sense in our current model of production. And so we're also trying to figure out, like, how do we solve that? How do we start thinking outside the box and just deliver the quality that we're known for, but, at a different economic scale, et cetera.
And then one other thing that we are also doing is that, we started doing something called like fractional production as well with our current model. We're adding that on because we noticed that more and more brands are kind of starting their own sort of in-house like agency and in-house, they're trying to have like a full 360 kind of thing within their own company, but sometimes they still need guidance because a lot of them don't necessarily have experience in production or how to bid or how to deal with contracts and talent and casting and things like that. So, we're also finding a way to support clients on, more macro levels as well, rather, and in addition to like a full experience, a full production as well. So, we're kind of really, we talk actually often about ways that we can continue to, grow and evolve and like meet the needs of what our clients want. And we, I think have a lot of really exciting things that 560 is working towards.
Yeah, I will say that as far as what I'm excited about is I think the intersect between entertainment and advertising is something that, has been talked about for a long time. But I do think with a lot of the streaming platforms needing revenue and wanting to explore having ads there, like I do really see the possibility that we're entering into an era where we can start to have more branded entertainment, more commercials that are going to live alongside like really premium content. It's been tough. I think we've been going through an era where a lot of advertising is living on these like user generated platforms that, I think are fun. I think it's innovative. I think you have to come up with like a different sort of storytelling standpoint. But a lot of our directors, us, like we love movies. We love like premium kind of entertainment, premium content. And I think the possibility that we could be looking at a world where now we're making ads that are going to go alongside, your favorite shows on Max, on other platforms. And so they're going to require, a lot more production. They're going to require higher level sort of storytelling skill sets. Like that's kind of like a silver lining to everything that's happening right now, where I think we get to go back to some of the things that we really enjoy doing.
That's awesome. For both of you, how do you see the role of executive producers evolving in the next few years in the industry?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think our skill sets need to be like broader, more, deeper, broader, more connected, more in touch. Like we have to just stay on top of things so much. Not only technology, but also people. Like there's so much talent coming up every day. Instagram, TikTok, you just have so many incredible people that are making stuff. And I think there was once a time, I remember there was a friend of mine who told me it was like the whole industry fits in a football stadium. Like it's in a basketball arena. Like there was a time where you just called people, the directors. There weren't that many directors out there because the barrier to entry was so high. But today it's global. It's just every day there's new people, amazing talent. So we just have to stay on top of a lot. We have to constantly educate ourselves on all this technology and all these tools. But the fundamentals will always stay the same. It's still our job to shepherd these projects through to make sure that we deliver, that everyone's experience and expectations are met. And yeah, it's going to always just continue to be a really fun problem solving challenge.
And I think EPs always have to be flexible, in terms of the evolution of the industry. The way of the old is really changed, and these bigger budgets with roster companies, to have a company that was a roster, didn't have any roster before, was kind of unheard of back then. And then now it's very common. And, we've got like so much social media, these platforms, all these streaming platforms. I mean, and there's so much content out there that, we just have to kind of know where to keep our focus and just kind of like make sure we're constantly abreast. And we're only 2 people at this stage, but like the more people that you get to help you with, focusing on all these different trends, and just kind of having a really big collaborative team, I think is kind of where we have to go. Just got to keep, following the trends and just evolving as we see fit.
That's awesome. TJ, Sebastian, thank you so much for sharing your story and walking me through a bit of your process and how you make these really amazing projects come to life. Thanks for being on production.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. We're big fans of the tools like Wrapbook. We have to say it, but like we love Wrapbook. Like we use it all the time. It's made, I mean, we both come from production as like coordinators, et cetera, like filling out paper time cards, and like it is, yeah, it's been I love the technology. I love the tools. Like, I did feel like for a time when I was working as a coordinator, I was like, man, we are shooting on the greatest digital cameras engineered by Germans, incredible technology. The camera team has all these cool toys, and like here in production, we've got like pencil and paper and like some Excel plugin that someone made 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. I always said this because there were a lot of other companies that were trying to do a digital version, but you guys made it really user friendly, and that helped a lot. Like I think that is the biggest key, because that was the biggest challenge with crew members, especially the older crew members. It's like trying to get them to fill a time card through a computer was like pulling your hair out. But now, it's like very like, what's your name? You guys made it like really user friendly. So I think you guys, thank you for bringing us into the digital world. Really.
Absolutely. It's awesome to have you all as customers and to be your partner in kind of making stories and sharing stories with the world. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cameron.